Believers, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
I appreciate God for the privilege to stand before you this day to encourage us from the Word of God. Indeed, it is a trying time that we are. And oftentimes, it is always thrilling and also interesting to go for feast. Then the other side of it is oftentimes immediately after the feast, we forgot about everything we learned in the feast. So actually I appreciate the theme chosen for the feast, which was actually the same thing that was used for the youth camp, and that is building a relationship with God. I've come to realize by the things that I personally am experiencing at this period, especially at the beginning of this year, that we don't need any other encouragement than continue to build, improve, and sharpen our relationship with God. The challenges are overwhelming. There are always issues staring us in the face. And sometimes, like, should I give up? And again, occasions arise, situations come our way for us to compromise, to do the things that ordinarily we would not have done. But the encouragement this morning is simply the fact that our relationship with God should not be compromised. And one of the things that I've also realized that can help us to continue to build and develop and enhance our relationship with God is continuing to put up righteous fear. In fact, that's the title of my sermon, Righteous Fear. Anytime we hear the word fear, it always connotes negative. The word fear always has a negative connotation, because the similar word that we know for fear is afraid. And sometimes another word that often goes with fear is worry. And our Lord Jesus Christ has encouraged us that worrying can never change anything. Worrying can never solve any problem. If it is not possible for us to change a strand of hair on our head to white, if it is black already, then why worry? So once again, the title of the sermon is Righteous Fear. Righteous fear. And by righteous fear, I mean the fear of God. Oftentimes when we hear the word fear, it brings shock to us. It ensnares us. It brings negative things, in short. In fact, there is a portion of the Bible that says some people live daily by fear of death. And thank God Jesus Christ has come to deliver us even from such. So I'm going to be looking at this sermon in three subsections. First of all, looking at unrighteous fear, the one that is negative. And then looking at righteous fear, which is the positive one that I want to encourage us to cultivate and also nourish. Then finally, how to overcome fear. And someone said, fear is an acronym. Actually, each letter of the word, fear, 4 letters, it simply means false evidence appearing real. Fear is an acronym for the word, for the statement, false evidence appearing real. That is to say, oftentimes, most of the things we actually fear are not really there. I can remember when we were very young, in those days, it's like every Friday night, Lagos television used to show one Yoruba movie that are always horror in nature. Movie like Otuorun and so on and so forth. As children then, especially when there was power outage and everywhere gets dark, if our parents send us any message to go inside, into the room to bring anything, the fear is always overwhelming. You begin to imagine those things you have seen in the movie. Those irregular, rare creatures, ghosts, you know. By the time you get inside, by the time you look at the wall, you will think as if you are seeing those pictures there. But the reality is what? They are not really there. They are just false evidence appearing real. It was all in our mind. So one area where we can even help ourselves to develop righteous, holy, godly fear is to work on our mind. Fear is the thing, is a product of the mind. Just like the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so he is. So let's look at unrighteous fear by looking at some scriptures. Let's start with Exodus chapter 14, from verses 8 to 14. Exodus chapter 14. Reading from verse 8. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the children of Israel, and the children of Israel went out with boldness. So the Egyptians pursued them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen, and his army, and overtook them, camping by the sea, beside Pi-hahiroth, before Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. So they were very afraid. That's another word for fear. And the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us, to bring us up out of Egypt? It is not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians. For it will have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. And Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. Verse 14. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. Look at this. Let's go back, verse 8 again. Verse 8, we read that the children of Israel went out with boldness. And sometimes when things are very nice, very rosy, very comfortable and pleasant, it is very easy to say, praise the Lord is good. But by the time we are faced with problem, look at the people of Israel that left Egypt with boldness, with joy. They were happy to live. In fact, when God called Moses to come and deliver them, he said, the cry of my people in Israel have ascended to me. They were crying, weeping under the bondage of the slavery in Egypt. But look at what they were now saying. That, didn't you tell to leave us in that bondage? This is a lie. Sometimes again, because we are overwhelmed with problems, we even tell ourselves lies. Things that were not, we begin to imagine it as it was this like this, it was better. Whereas we should know that God has a better plan for us. I believe when the people of Israel were living, remember they even exploited the people of Egypt. Whatever they asked for, they got them. But now because they were faced with challenge, looking at the Red Sea in front, they cannot swim through it. And then looking at the back, the enemies are approaching to attack. The challenge now is, where do we go? Just like your brother say, Iwájú ò ṣe lọ, ẹ̀yìn ò ṣe padà sí. You can neither advance forward nor go back. There are dangers at both sides. So this type of fear can make us to forget God. When we allow problems to overwhelm us, that is the time we should rather begin to seek and begin to look at what is the size of our God relative to the size of the problem we have. But oftentimes, we make the size of our problem to overwhelm the size of our God. Simply because maybe we cannot see this God physically. And he told us that his presence is always with us. This is negative fear. Fear of death. If they go forward into the sea, they will drown and die. And when they turn backward, the Egyptians army will attack them. The same thing, death. So sometimes the fear of death, the fear of how do I survive, make us even forget about the promises of God. And this can affect our relationship with God negatively. They left Egypt with boldness. They were marching out with joy. But when problems faced them, fear developed. They forgot about the miracles that God did, the plagues that God did to punish the people of Egypt. And they were exempted. They didn't remember all that. So I think one of the things that can even help us to overcome negative fear is to remember the good things that God has done for us. Let us try to always remember those good old days. And then whatever is making us to fear at the moment, then it will drown it. And then it will be replaced by the fear of God, which is the righteous godly fear. Let's look at another negative unrighteous fear. In the book of Psalm 23 verse 4. Psalm 23 verse 4 is a popular passage. I have known this psalm ever before knowing Christ. Psalm 23 verse 4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Sometimes even daily, we are steered with fear of death. Fear of death stares us in the face. But it is only somebody that have the righteous fear of God that can be able to say what David said here. I remember some time ago, myself and one of my aunts were discussing that, okay, I think we went for a burial. And we were discussing, my aunt was asking the person, the people that were actually keeping guard of the burial ground, that, do you people sleep here? The man said yes. My auntie now said, how do you now feel when these dead people are doing meeting in the night? I said, auntie, which dead people are doing meeting in the night? They are dead, they are unconscious, they can do nothing. He said, look at you, small child is worrying you. You know the way adults will talk, that you this child, what do you know? I said, auntie, and you go to church regularly, you don't know your Bible. The Bible says the dead are unconscious. It doesn't happen. And to even encourage her, the guard too was saying, it can be very scary. If not that we have some things that we know, some to fortify ourselves. And I was just laughing, deception. You see, sometimes we even allow general opinion to affect our opinion, instead of acting by the opinion of the expression of God's word. There is no better opinion than what the word of God says. So brethren, even when things we are going through is like it's going to lead to death, let us hold firm onto our faith that if God is on our side, if our relationship with God is very solid and positive, God may make the death to pass over. Look at the Hebrew children in the land of Babylon, when they were asked to bow down to idols. They believed that God could deliver them even from the punishment of the king. But on the second thought, supposing God chooses not to deliver us, are we still going to bow? They said, even if it happens that God chose not to deliver us, we will still not bow. This is the kind of fear that we are talking about. You know, some of us, sometimes again, the kind of fear we have about God is the kind of fear that some children have about their parents that has this bully nature. There are some daddies that when they are coming back from work, everybody in the house will go into hiding. Instead of them coming to meet the daddy with laughter, with smile, with joy, with happiness, they will go and hide because he will surely find one fault. And he doesn't hesitate to give a hand slap. There are some daddies like that. Any slight mistake, his hand is always free, as if he's a table tennis player. Bam! Before he's able to tell you, this is what you have wrong, you have already heard a resounding sound on your cheeks. In fact, sometimes we even condemn ourselves. Maybe we committed some sins and that sin appears so great in our eyes that can God really forgive me? Sometimes we condemn ourselves that this thing that I've done, I shouldn't have done it. We are now running away from God instead of approaching God. The book of 1 John says, if we say we are without sin, we are what? We are liars, and the truth is not in us. But that is not for us to make it regular that we now continue to live in sin. No. We are working towards perfection. It is not the kind of fear that the children of Israel had when God told Moses to gather them to the foot of a mountain, that he wants to speak with them. And the voice of God was coming out to them like a thunder. And this one was instilling fear, the kind of negative fear that is making them to be telling to Moses, please, we don't want to listen to God directly anymore. No. From creation, God has always desired to have fellowship one-on-one with man. He doesn't want to be a distant God that is far away somewhere and we are just down below here. Even though heaven and earth are far apart, God said is very close to us. Say, draw near to God and God will draw near to you. Like we have been told in the sermon before, that it's not as if as we are moving, God is also moving. No, God is always there on His throne. He is as close to us as you can imagine He is close to you. And that will depend on the value we place in our God and the size our God is. So we should not allow fear to make us to run away from God. That this God is a fearful God, though. He's a God that can even kill. Yes, He can kill. But He has promised to give us life by the grace that He has made available in Christ Jesus. He has sent Jesus Christ to come and redeem us from the curse of the law, not to relieve us from obeying the law, like some people erroneously believe. So negative fear always makes us to feel as if we are going to die at the next moment. Even some people, if a rat just run and pass on top of their legs, you know, it's like they are dead already. You begin to hear different kind of prayers. And people that pray all this fire prayer, they live daily by fear of death. They don't see anything positive in anything. Everything they always think negative. I have encountered different kind of Christians, especially those that attend CAC at MFM. Everything is negative. You need to listen to them pray. Their prayer is always every enemy that is not making me to make progress. And sometimes they don't know that they themselves are the enemy of their own progress because they fail to do things that they should do. A lot of them believe success and progress will come just by praying and not being diligent in doing what you need to do. A lot of them know a lot of psalm that they can use to pray against the enemy. But ask them what is going to happen in the last day. Ask them what is in Revelation 21 about things that will happen in the new heaven and the new earth. They don't know. So they live their life daily in fear. They hardly pray about God I want to know you more. God, I want my relationship with you to be more cordial. They are busy looking for enemy everywhere. Everybody they see is a potential enemy. Even when somebody did them good, they are still having a negative thought. Am I sure why he's doing this? So let us not allow negative fear or unrighteous fear to rule in our heart. Let's look at Proverbs 29, verse 25. Proverbs 29. The fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord shall be saved. This is the summary of it. Negative fear is often about fear of men, fear of what a fellow man can do to us. And Jesus has told us not to fear man that can only kill body, but he can't kill the spirit. But it is only God that can destroy both the body even and spirit as well, because he's the one that created both. If somebody died and they say it's witches, it's because God allowed it. If God said that person will not die at that time, no matter what any witch can do, you can't take it. Look at the case of Job. If God wants Job to die, he will have allowed the devil to have his way. But God did not give him that chance. It is only God that can take the life of anyone at any time. We should stop fearing unnecessarily. Fear of man is a snare. It is actually the fear of God. And the fear of God is not the kind of, if I don't do this, God will punish me. No, let us not begin to fear God simply to avoid punishment. Let us fear God because God is God and He deserves to be feared. Now, let's look at Luke chapter 12 to round off the section on righteous fear. Luke chapter 12 from verse 22 to 32. Luke 12 from verse 22. Then he said to his disciples, therefore I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, nor about the body, what you will put on. Life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. And we need to know that it is God that gives life and sustains life. Let's jump to verse 32 straight. Do not fear, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. So fear brings worry, and worry does not solve any problem. No matter worry from now till eternity, it can't solve any problem for you. Remember, fear is simply false evidence. I'm getting as if it is real. They are not really dead. So if only we can replace the good fear, the righteous fear, the godly fear of God with that negative fear, we discover that life will be a lot more interesting to live and enjoy it. Now, to the righteous fear. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 to 2. Deuteronomy chapter 6. Now, this is the commandment, and these are the statutes and judgments which the Lord your God has commanded to teach you, that you may observe them in the land which you are crossing over to possess, that you may fear the Lord your God, to keep all His statutes and His commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. This is the kind of fear that God is expecting. Righteous fear. The fear that leads you to obey God in all circumstances. In fact, sometimes when we break God's law, it was also out of fear. For those of us that our job will not allow us to come for service that fall within the weekday, it's fear of losing the job. or losing something. When I fail to pay tithe, whether the regular first tithe or the one for the feast, it is also fear of this money is not enough for me to do this thing. These are some of the things that come to our mind. So we need to learn to allow the fear of God, the true fear that wants to please God, to be able to overcome the negative fear. Psalm 19, verse 9. Psalm 19, verse 9. The fear of the Lord is plain, or another word for that is pure. The fear of the Lord is holy, is righteous, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. Remember, the fear of God is not the one that fear God because God will punish. Now, supposing God will not even punish sin, how many of us will still choose to fear God? Many people today, they go to church simply because they are afraid of receiving punishment from God. Supposing God will not punish sin, a lot of people will not even bother to fear God. But the fear of God that is holy and righteous is the one that will encourage us to obey God's commandment. And this is the whole duty of man. Psalm 27, verses 1 to 3. Psalm 27, verses 1 to 3. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? When the fear of God rules in your heart, then you fear no one, no human being, no situation, no circumstance. The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked came against me to eat up my flesh, my enemies and foes, they stumbled and fell. Though an army may encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war may rise against me, in this I will be confident. So the fear of God brings confidence. It gives us boldness. It gives us assurance that no enemy can take our life if God does not end it. Psalm 34, verse 9. Oh, fear the Lord, you his saints. There is no want to those who fear him. There is no want for those who fear him. The fact that we have been asking God for some particular things and it's not yet materializing does not mean God is not going to answer. There are times that God is telling us, my son, my daughter, please wait. We also need to learn to wait on God as we continue to nurture our righteous fear of God. Even human beings too. Consider a father that bought unripe plantain. And a child is crying, Daddy, give me plantain, I want to give me plantain. Will that daddy give it to him? No. No matter how much that father loves that child, he knew that this plantain is poisonous at this moment. You know, sometimes some of us are not ready to handle the kind of success and prosperity that God wants to bring our way. Maybe that was why God is not giving it to us now, at this moment. So that success will not even destroy us. Success is not an end in itself. A lot of people don't know. Success is even a journey. Similarly, failure too. Like the story about, is it Thomas Edison that discovered electricity? Or light, or bulb? Can't remember exactly now. He said he did it about 999 times. Yep. He said he has not failed. He has only learned how not to do a lamp 999 times. Then he was able to get how to do it well at the 1000th time. Failure is not an end, it's not a destination. Similarly, success. A lot of people attain success. At the end of the day, they regretted and then they terminated their own life. Success is not all about money. If some of us go to the hospital to find out how much is being paid to be sustained on oxygen per hour, per day, you will begin to thank God every day that you are breathing in freely without paying a dime. Yes, it is true you don't have money to buy the kind of home you want to live now. But you are not spending the little you have now to sustain yourself on oxygen or any of your family members. One of the prayers I pray daily is thank God for the gift of life. It's a gift that I sleep and I wake up every day. It's a miracle. It's not a trivial thing. Sometimes we trivialize it. So when we begin to appreciate little things, things that appear little and common, then it will help us to appreciate God more. And that will even help us to cultivate more righteous fear for this God. And be willing and ready to obey His commandments as He has commanded us. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13. Ecclesiastes 12, verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments. This is the whole duty of man. So the fear of God will push us, will encourage us to be able to obey the commandments of God. And this is what God has called us unto. So let's look at 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. 2 Timothy chapter 1, reading from verse 7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear. That is talking about the negative fear that is always making us to be afraid, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. This is what God has given us. He has given us the spirit of love. And the Bible says, love casts out fear. If we claim to really love God, then we will cultivate righteous, holy, godly fear that will make it even easy for us to obey God's law and commandments. Remember the story of that rich young man that came to Jesus. Now, what can I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus told him, you know the law now, go and keep it. He said, from childhood I've been keeping God's law. Jesus said, that is interesting. So that means you have become so perfect. Okay, Jesus now said, okay, there is one thing you need to do. Go and sell your possession and come and follow me. And the Bible says what? The man went away sad. What is that telling us? It shows us that that man has even failed in the very first law. And he boasted that he has been keeping the law from childhood. If it is true that he has been keeping the law, if he truly loved God with the whole of his heart, with the whole of his mind, with the whole of his soul, what is that thing that will be too much for him to give away, to come and dedicate his life fully to God, following God? That is to show you that nobody can claim righteousness by just keeping the law. The love of God must be enshrined in our heart. That will make us to be able to fear Him. Whether we are in a private place, in a place where there are no church members that will see us, the way some of us behave in our neighborhood is different from the way we behave where we are in church. We put on a different garment of behavior in the church. The garment of attitude we put up in offices and our place of work is also different. People don't know us as children of God in our neighborhood. So brethren, let our behavior, our attitude be consistent with the word of God. Let the word of love of God be established deeply in our hearts. And by this, the love of God, the fear of God will be a thing that manifests itself naturally by obeying the word of God in our life. Then Hebrews chapter 5, verse 7. Hebrews chapter 5, verse 7. Let's take it from verse 5. Hebrews 5 from verse 5 to 7. So also Christ did not glorify himself to become high priest, but it was he who said of him, that is God, testifying about the Son now, you are my Son, today I have begotten you. As he also says in another place, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. Verse 7. Who, in the day of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplications, with vehement cries and tears to him, who was able to save him from death, and was heard because of his godly fear. In the sermon that we heard about prayer. So prayer too can help us. When Jesus was here as a human being, when he was about to face the crucifixion, he was overwhelmed. He was feeling like, this death, can I go through it? Will I be able to bear the pain? And the Bible recorded that his sweat was like a drop of blood. But he prayed to God, his Father, who was able to save him. So no matter the problem we are facing, let us remember to take it to God in prayer. And the fact that we have prayed this thing once and forgot about it, if the answer has not come, let's keep on asking. Persistence in prayer. Prayer of opportunity. Persistence in prayer does not mean when you are praying now, you have to count one particular statement 10 times. No, that's the way they do it in Catholic. They count prayer. Father bless me, maybe 30 times or whatever. That's not opportunity prayer. It's about you. Don't give up in praying until the answer comes. Look at Daniel. He started praying and he was praying for 21 days. And when the result came, the angel that brought the result said, the first day you put your mind to pray to God, God has already released your answer. But the prince of Persia will lead him. And he has to deal with that. So sometimes when you are praying for certain things, you don't know the kind of battle that God is even fighting on your behalf, unaware. So when you have prayed to God and asked for something, then begin to thank him for it. Appreciate him. Learning from what King Jehoshaphat did. He has a war to fight, and he gathered people to be singing praises. Is that not senseless? To a man, it's foolishness. But the things of God oftentimes appear foolish to us. But the Bible says, even the foolishness of God is far, far, far wiser than the wisdom of men. You can't be wiser than God. God knows everything. And he knows what is good for us at any point in time. All we need to learn is to key into his will. James said, oftentimes we pray, but we don't receive. He said we don't have because we don't ask. Even when we ask amiss. That is to say, wrongly. We pray for certain things that are outside the will of God. Maybe one of the prayer we need to be praying again is, Father, let me know your will for me in this particular situation or circumstance. So when you are praying outside the will of God, you will never have such thing. And that is why some people go ahead to even get alternatives. For example, doing money ritual, defrauding in offices, and so on and so forth. In fact, some Christians will even be praying, like it was mentioned in the sermon, God, please let me just come across a Ghana must go full of money. You are a thief. There was a day even a so-called Christian brother was discussing with me. Okay, even asked me a question. Supposing some gang of thieves are being chased and they drop bag of money in my compound, what will I do? I said, I will take it to the police. He said, that's stupidity. I said, why? He said, it is God's blessing for you. Because they will never come back to us. How are you sure? They won't come back to ask for their goods. They knew where they dropped it. They wanted to escape for their lives. Suppose they come back tomorrow. Will you say you didn't see the money? Whether the police, he said, the police you are going to give it to, they will be the one to spend it. And what's my own? I don't have to share in the iniquity of these people. That should be summary of the whole thing. This money is ill-gotten money. So if you are taken to the police station and the police do whatever they want to do with it, that's between them and God. If they like, let them spend. If they like, let them put up a notice that if there was a robbery in your house, come to the police station or whatever. Supposing you begin to spend the money now, and the thieves were eventually caught, and they now ask them, okay, this money you stole from this place, where is it? And then I said they drop it in Lagbaja's compound, and they come back, and you never reported it. What will happen? What will be your face? Some Christian, that Christian will now begin to say, God, why are you allowing me to be persecuted? Whereas you cause a problem by yourself. You don't pray for your own money to be lost. You are now praying for somebody to lose money for you to now find it. That is even stealing by trick, indirectly. But we know that God has promised to bless his own children. So conclusion, brethren. Isaiah chapter 8, verses 12 to 13. Isaiah 8, verses 12 to 13. Do not say a conspiracy concerning all that these people call a conspiracy. Nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. 13. The Lord of hosts, him you shall hallow. Let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. Dread is a stronger word for fear. Dread means a very strong fear. But remember, fear will be negative and positive. The only positive fear is the fear of God. When you fear God, there is no threat that any man can put before you. You won't be shaken. A lot of people compromise in their places of work because their superior threatens them with their promotion if they don't dance to the tune of an action they want to perform that you knew it was against God. We should not fear man. Negative fear is against the fear of God. So let's read verse 13 again. The Lord of hosts, him you shall hallow, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. If you fear God, then there's no man you will not be able to face. There's no circumstance too. There is no situation that you won't succumb. Then finally, Hebrews chapter 2, verses 14 to 15. Hebrews 2, verses 14 to 15. For he has not put the world to come, of which we speak, in subjection to angels. Well, that's not the passage. Okay, sorry, 14. I was reading another. Inasmuch, then, as the children have partaken of the flesh and blood, he himself likewise shared in the same, that through death he might destroy him who had the power of death, that is, the devil, and release those who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. This should not be our lifestyle. We should not live in negative fear. Whether fear of what we are going to eat this afternoon, in the night tomorrow, or how we are going to pay our house rents for next year, or fear of if I die now, what will become of me. Such fear should not be the one we live by. Rather, it should be the fear of God. The fear of willing to obey God's law and commandments. And as we do, daily, living by righteous fear, and God himself is going to help us. And to overcome negative fear is simply to replace the negative fear with the righteous fear, which is the fear of God. And of course, prayer is not out of place. Whatever is good that you are enjoying now, it needs prayer to sustain it. And whatever negative, unpleasant, uncomfortable things you are going through now as well, it also needs prayer. So whether we live in comfort or discomfort, let us not forget that God should always be in our mind. We should learn to pray always, when it is good and when it is bad. And the God of comfort will not leave us alone, according to his promise. Shabbat Shabbat.